There's no crying in baseball. Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 104 of Movies Are Awesome, the show all about fossil hunting. My name is Nathan Pottle, and thank you so much for joining me on this rainy, dreary day. The clouds are covered. I'm looking out the window here, and it is just completely overcast. It's raining. It's actually supposed to be snowing later today, so it is a perfect day to just sit at home and watch movies, and that is kind of what I've been doing. If you follow the show on Instagram, I did not do a new episode last week because I bought a brand new TV, and I have just been playing around with this thing. I had no idea that 4K TVs and new TVs have so many different settings and things that you can play around on, and I have just been having a great time fine-tuning this TV, finding the right settings to make sure that everything looks and sounds amazing. Now, my old TV that I had before, I had that thing for 8 years. It was a 47-inch Toshiba. I actually still have it. We moved it into our bedroom. But now downstairs, I now have a 75-inch Sony X900H, if you want to look up that model of TV. It was pretty well reviewed, so that's why I ended up going with that one. And my eyes have been opened to everything I've been missing out. I think a little bit down the road, I'm going to do an episode specifically on my upgrade into 4K and everything that I've kind of learned along the way. And if anyone else is looking to upgrade to 4K, just kind of like a helpful episode about things you can learn and everything that I've learned and discovered since getting into the market for a new TV. Now, if you listen to the show a lot, you would have heard that my plan for this year was actually to upgrade to a projector and get a 120-inch 4K screen in my basement. Now, unfortunately, due to some budget constraints, I was not able to do that, and I ended up just upgrading to a TV. I had to settle for 75 inches, but you know what? I'm going to survive. I'm going to be all right. I'm pretty pleased with my purchase, and as I go forward and I learn more about the 4K format and get some other things figured out, I think I'm going to do an episode about that. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Today I am talking about the 1989 Tim Burton Batman starring Michael Keaton, and I am excited to talk about this one here. So we're going to be talking about spoilers throughout the entire thing, so if you have not seen the 1989 Tim Burton Batman, maybe you want to go and watch it. I think it's good. We're going to be talking about things that work, things that don't work, but it is going to be just kind of spoilers throughout. I don't want to have to worry about anything like that. This movie is over 30 years old, so I don't think I have to worry about things like that. And this was a pretty big and popular movie at the time when it came out. I wasn't born yet, but I knew about this movie, and I grew up watching this version of Batman until then. Of course, the Dark Knight trilogy rolled out and all that stuff. So why don't we talk about this movie? It is directed by Tim Burton, and like I said, was released in 1989. And the story of this, it's not really a Batman origin, but it's kind of, Batman is still kind of new and going around the city, and people are scared of him. They don't really know what's going on. And then we get kind of an origin of the Joker, and then Jack Nicholson's character, Jack Napier, he becomes the Joker, and then they square off, and then there's a love interest for Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, who is played by Kim Basinger, or is it Basinger? Basinger, I don't know. Either way, Kim Basinger, we'll say it that way for now. Kim Basinger, she plays Vicky Vale, who's a love interest for Bruce Wayne, and she's also a reporter, and she's looking into what's going on with the Joker, investigating Batman, but then she falls in love with Bruce Wayne. And then there are some other things that happen. We have songs from Prince, and a bunch of other stuff that goes on. There are some pretty iconic moments within this movie that have carried on throughout the Batman legacy. Like, for example, Batman saying, "I'm Batman." That first kind of appears in this movie. We have some iconic things from the Joker in this movie. We have some really iconic visual images. There's a wonderful shot near the end of the movie where the Batwing flies up into the sky and just covers the moon, and it creates the bat signal with the shape of the Batwing in front of the moon. It's a glorious shot. I like that kind of visual stuff a lot. So that kind of stuff is throughout this movie here. I've already mentioned our top three main cast of the movie. So Michael Keaton, yeah, he is Bruce Wayne / Batman, and he is kind of a tortured soul, and in kind of like a quirky way. When Vicky Vale first meets him at a party in Wayne Manor, she doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is, and that's kind of interesting. What I found in this version of Batman is that Bruce Wayne is not this hyper celebrity of Gotham City that he is in the Dark Knight trilogy, or in even the Zack Snyder verse, or whatever you want to call those movies, the DCEU, the Batman v Superman movies. In those, Bruce Wayne is famous and he's charismatic and everybody knows who he is and knows what he looks like. In this version, he is far more of a recluse and people don't really know who he is or what he looks like. So when Vicky Vale goes to this party and she bumps into him, she says, "Hey, which one of these guys is Bruce Wayne? I'm looking for him." And he goes, "Oh, like, I don't know who Bruce Wayne is." And that is kind of him just playing around with her, but at the same time, he doesn't really know who he is as a person. He's Batman, he's Bruce Wayne, he's really torn between these two lives that he's living. So we get kind of that interesting moment between them when they first meet, and then later in the film when they fall in love and they're kind of dating a little bit, we dive more into their relationship. But I think that first meeting it really says a lot about who this version of Bruce Wayne is, that he's not out in the limelight, he's not hanging out with people. He is severely damaged by witnessing the death of his parents, and as a result, he really keeps to himself, except for when he goes out as Batman. And I found that to be very interesting. It wasn't something that I really picked up on. It had been a few years since I last watched this movie, but my wife actually had never seen it, so I said, "Hey, why don't I pop this in? Let's watch something light and fun." And it is light and fun. I wouldn't describe this movie as something that really takes itself particularly seriously. It's from a different era of superhero movies, back when we had the Christopher Reeve Superman, and there's like this hope and wonder. And then we have this, which is a little more goofy and kind of dives into the absurdity of Batman. There's a lot of absurdity to Batman within the comics, and I think that nothing really points out Batman's absurdity more than the Lego Batman movie. It really hits the nail on the head on some of the weird stuff that happens within Batman comics, but I think that this 1989, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It has some serious elements to it, but overall, I think it's trying to have fun, especially when it comes to Jack Nicholson's Joker. Now, we've had a lot of Jokers over the years now, and each one is supremely different from the other. Our very first Joker on screen was Cesar Romero in the old Batman TV show, and then in Batman 66, which I really like, the 1966 Batman movie. If you haven't seen it, you should probably check it out, because it's a lot of fun, pokes a lot of fun at itself. It's not meant to be serious at all, even more so than the 1989 one. It is just a rip-roaring good time, so I recommend that one. But Cesar Romero's Joker, he was an interesting one, and just kind of a trickster more than anything else. And actually, the actor Cesar Romero, he had a mustache, but he would refuse to shave his mustache off. So when he put his Joker makeup on, he would paint the Joker makeup over top of his mustache, and it looks ridiculous and it's crazy. And it just adds to the charm of that version of the Joker. Then after that, we had this Jack Nicholson Joker, and he's kind of more a high-level gangster type person. And then we have the Heath Ledger Joker, and this is like the definitive Joker, the agent of chaos, where he doesn't even know, he can't even get his backstory straight, and he just does things, and it's magnificent. And then we get the Jared Leto Joker, who is fine, I think. I don't think he's awful. He's probably my least favorite of the Jokers, but from what I understand, he was really butchered from what the original vision was that David Ayer had for the Suicide Squad, or I guess just Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is the new one that's coming out, directed by James Gunn. But it sounds like there was a lot more going on with the Jared Leto Joker that was just completely stripped away from the studio and left very bare bones, and he's this kind of wannabe gangster with all of these tattoos and just trying to be super edgy, and it just didn't really work. And then we had the new Joker, which was played by Joaquin Phoenix, and this one also won an Academy Award, much like the Heath Ledger Joker. I don't think it's as good, and I've said more than once on the show, I don't like Joker as a movie. I think it's very derivative and unoriginal, and other than Joaquin Phoenix's performance, I don't think it's a very good movie. But that just shows you all the different Jokers that we've had, the different versions and iterations of the character, and just how widespread it can be. And this Joker is very interesting. For one, we get kind of an origin story of him that in this version, it was Jack Napier who killed Bruce Wayne's parents, and then Batman threw Jack Napier into this vat of chemicals, which then turned him into the Joker, and he embraced his insanity and madness. And then this Joker goes off and he's using weird chemicals to kill people and make them die with a smile on their face. So we get that kind of, let's put a smile on that face, versus the Heath Ledger, let's put a smile on that face. It's really not the same thing, but they're both impactful in a way, because watching the people die in this 1989 Batman, watching them die from this chemical that gives them this unnerving, demented smile on their face, it's really quite almost disturbing to look at. It's unnerving in a way I do not enjoy it, and I think it's really hard hitting that way. That this Joker is out of his mind, but in a different way from other ones that we've seen. He's really a lot more demented, and he's incredibly well-resourced. Like, he's able to get all of these chemicals and all of his plans rolled out. It happens very efficiently, very quickly. It's kind of crazy and unbelievable in that sense, but at the same time, it's the Joker, and we're watching a Batman movie, so we just have to suspend disbelief at least a little bit here. If I get around to talking about the Joel Schumacher Batmans, the suspension of disbelief really gets out of hand when we get to, like, the Batman credit card, and that's just off the walls ridiculous, those movies. But we're talking about this one here. So within this movie, the rules that it sets up for itself, I feel that those rules work really well, and I enjoy this movie. There's a lot of things to like about this movie. For example, I really like the Batmobile. This version of the Batmobile is probably my favorite Batmobile that I've seen in a movie. There's a really great Lego set of this Batmobile that I really, really want. Unfortunately, Batman Lego, or just Lego in general, is so expensive, so I don't have it, but I would like it. There's a Lego store in the mall that I went to just last week, and I saw it, and I really wanted to buy it, but that's besides the point. The point is, this Batmobile is so cool. The design of it, it's sleek, it's high-tech, it doesn't look super practical, but I love the look of it and how it turns the shields on, and it drives by itself, and it launches the fire out of the back, and it launches itself over cliffs and stuff. I really like this Batmobile. Now, I say that it's my favorite only in the sense that the Tumbler I don't really count as a Batmobile because it's a tank, but I really like the Tumbler as well, especially when it shoots the Batpod motorcycle out of it. And The Dark Knight is just such a good movie. And actually, after we watched this 1989 Batman, I immediately followed it up with the next day, we watched The Dark Knight. And those movies are night and day. There are actually some parallels in there that I noticed where the Joker and Batman are facing off. There's a face-off in each movie, and in each one, the Joker says, come on and hit me, or at least a version of that, where Batman is charging in, and the Joker is taunting Batman, and he's saying, bring it on, like, come on, like, let's do this. And I found that very fascinating. Now, is The Dark Knight deliberately calling back to this 1989 version, or is it just a coincidence, right? But I think that it's got to be on purpose because it's so similar between the two scenes. It's got to be. It's got to be. But yeah, so that Batmobile I really, really liked. One thing that I don't like is the Batsuit. Now, I actually don't like a lot of Batsuits because when you see Batman walking around in them, He can't turn his head. He's very stiff. It looks very rubbery. It doesn't look like armor protecting him, which it's supposed to be. So it doesn't look like really anything. It doesn't look comfortable. It doesn't look mobile. The only Batsuit that I really like is the one that he has in The Dark Knight. I like that one a lot because it's meant to be more streamlined and he can turn his head and he's able to move around a lot more. So I like that one a lot. But this Batsuit I find particularly unimpressive. It's not the worst Batsuit I've ever seen. I don't think the the Batman and Robin suit. I don't think that one is very good. That's the one with the bat nipples, if you're familiar with it. And then we also have the Ben Affleck Batsuit, which is fine. I think it's only just okay. It's nothing particularly impressive, but this one from 19... And that's the problem with Batman, is that there's so much to talk about. Like, when I was doing some research about this movie and I typed Batman into IMDb, there were... like, the first 4 movies that came up weren't even the Batman that I was looking for. There's just so much out there. We have so much Batman. Can DC maybe give us something different, please? Don't get me wrong, though. I am very much looking forward to the Matt Reeves directed Batman, the one that has Robert Pattinson in it. I'm very excited for that. The trailer was very promising. It looks really gritty and intense, and Matt Reeves as a director is fantastic. If you haven't checked out his Planet of the Apes movies, you should go do that because they are phenomenal. They're like just top tier drama and tension out of Matt Reeves. He knows what he's doing as a director, so you should check out some of the stuff that he's doing and then get excited for his Batman. But there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of DC characters out there that we haven't even really seen, or we have seen and haven't been done justice, and we should see some more of. Because really, I feel like we're getting to a point where Batman has been done to death, so let's do something different, please. Let's please do something different. I don't know what, but, not Batman, not Superman, not Wonder Woman. Give us something new. Or at least something that's so different in left field, because they're talking about this new Superman movie that's supposed to be coming out where they're looking at getting a black Superman, and sure, I guess that's fine, but why don't you give us a new character? Give us something new instead of a what-if type storyline. I don't know. Let's get back to 1989 Batman. I don't like the Batsuit. I like the Batmobile. Where was I? Yes, so Tim Burton. Tim Burton directed this movie, and this is really only his 3rd major production. Before this, he directed Pee-wee Herman's Big Adventure, and then he directed Beetlejuice, and then followed up with this after making Beetlejuice. And this was kind of before Tim Burton got to do whatever he wanted and really dove deep into his weirdness, because it was after this movie that he did Edward Scissorhands, and then when he did Batman Returns is way weirder than this movie. It's a lot darker. Everyone is a lot more pale. It's just so much more out there than this first Batman movie that he did. And then as Tim Burton developed as a director, he just kind of dove deeper and deeper into this weirdness. And then he met Johnny Depp and they just started doing weird things together. And then I am firmly of the opinion that Tim Burton has not made a good movie since the 1990s, with the exception of Sweeney Todd. I liked Sweeney Todd, but everything else that he's done, I just have found to be unwatchable. His Planet of the Apes movie is horrendous. His Alice in Wonderland is really, really bad. His Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is just ridiculous. I don't have very high expectations from Tim Burton movies anymore because he's hit his peak, and he hit his peak 30 years ago. There are a lot of people out there who probably really disagree and love Tim Burton's movies, and he's got this kind of like cult following about him, but I just do not think that Tim Burton has done anything worth watching in a really long time. That being said, this movie that Tim Burton made, I think is good, and people should watch it if they're interested in Batman and you want to see a different kind of superhero movie that, isn't connected to other stuff and isn't really, opening a new universe, even though there's definite setup in here. This movie has the potential to open wide into a whole big universe. There was a lot of good world building in this movie without bashing you over the head with it. So there's good subtle world building, and then there's bad beating you over the head world building. I'll give you an example of each. A good example is this movie, because we have characters like Harvey Dent, and he later is supposed to become Two-Face, but he's not Two-Face in this movie, he's just Harvey Dent. So he's in this movie. And then we have other characters that I can't remember their names right now, but like they're set up kind of to have future things. So there was a lot of good world building in this. A bad example of world building, just to get it on the table, is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because that movie is almost all world building and future setup, and the movie is nothing but promising for great things down the road instead of delivering me great things in the movie I'm currently watching. So there's just an example of good and bad world building. I've actually been thinking about revisiting The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but I've got it on my shelf, so maybe I will revisit it and do a review. If anyone's interested in hearing me talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, let me know, and I will do an episode about it, because oh man, that movie's not very good. But getting back to world building and stuff, yeah, this movie isn't really trying to set up future stuff. It has the seeds in there that could expand on later, but it's just its own thing. It's contained, and then it got a sequel, and then it got 2 more sequels, and that's a whole disaster in itself. I could probably do a whole episode just talking about that stuff and everything that went on with going from Tim Burton to Joel Schumacher and all the nonsense going on within those movies. It just gets, the quality of those movies just depreciates more and more and more as you go down until you get to Batman and Robin, and it's just a dead franchise at that point. And when did Batman and Robin come out? 1990 something. I can't remember, but George Clooney was Batman, and then the Batman franchise was dead. It was super dead until Christopher Nolan came along and he was like, hey, I want to make Batman and I want to do it this way. And it's incredible. Batman Begins is a fantastic movie. The Dark Knight is even better. And then The Dark Knight Rises is just, it is what it is. But this Batman movie from 1989, this was kind of the start of everything. And it established what people think of comic book movies, what they can be. This was the highest grossing domestic film of 1989. Internationally, though, it was only the second highest grossing. It came in second place to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But this movie was very popular and made a lot of money. And it started this whole franchise and saying like, hey, this is what superhero movies can be. And then you had the X-Men movies saying like, hey, this is what superhero movies can be. And then you had Spider-Man, and that set a new precedent. And then we had Iron Man and The Dark Knight come out in the same year and just kind of change everything. And then the game was just completely different from then on out. And we had some good lessons from The Dark Knight, some bad lessons from The Dark Knight, because Warner Brothers from then on out just thought that all we want is dark and grim and just pile onto it. Let's just be serious, serious, serious and not have anything. And actually, when I rewatched The Dark Knight last week, there's actually a lot of good, funny moments within that movie. And in The Dark Knight Rises, there's like nothing. There's nothing to laugh at. There's nothing to enjoy. It's just dreary the whole time. And that's the same with what we got for Man of Steel. It's dreary. And then Batman v Superman, it's dreary. And there are like a couple of jokes interjected, and it's just, they just don't work. And then we get into, and then from there we move on to Justice League, and it's dreary. And Wonder Woman was kind of light and fun, and I liked that one a lot. But you see the kind of slippery slope that we started on with Batman, but then we get some things that are really highly enjoyable. So I don't know what kind of point I'm trying to make with that, but it's a good movie. It's a good movie, and it started us down a path of getting other good superhero movies, not necessarily good Batman movies. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this movie. Just let me go through my notes, make sure I mentioned everything. Oh yeah, Prince. There's a lot of Prince songs in here, and it's weird. Joker is dancing along to Prince, and I'm not 100% sure why. It's kind of a strange sequence. I don't really like it that much. That's another negative of this movie for me. But that's it. I talked about everything else on my list of notes that I want to talk about today, so I'm going to start wrapping things up here. Overall, I'm going to say Batman from 1989 is good. It's not great, and it's worth revisiting. So that's all I'm going to say about it today. I'm going to start to wrap things up here. My question for you guys today is, have you seen the 1989 Batman? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I would love to know what your thoughts on the movie are. You can reach out to me on social media. You can find me on Twitter at PottleNathan, and you can follow the show on Instagram at Movies Are Awesome Podcast. If you haven't done so already, you can feel free to subscribe to the show or share it with a friend. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and so sorry about not having a new one out last week. I was just too excited about my new TV and wanting to play around with it. So next week, I don't know what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to find something, but that's going to be all for today. So once again, thank you very much. And as always, if you have nothing else to do, go watch more movies.